The termination letter came on a Tuesday, which was somehow worse than any other day of the week would have been. Mira Solen read it twice, then set it on the kitchen counter of the apartment she'd already been told to vacate by the end of the month. Her name had been removed from the Voss Group payroll the same morning it appeared in the financial crime registry. Embezzlement, seven-figure sum, falsified transfer logs bearing her digital signature. She'd found out the way everyone else did, through a news alert on her phone. By Wednesday, her family had called, not to help, to inform her very carefully that House Solen's charitable foundation could not be associated with a criminal investigation, and that they hoped she understood. Her father said it in the tone he used for disappointing business weather. Her mother didn't call at all. By Friday, every firm she'd contacted had gone quiet, not hostile. Quiet, which was worse, because it meant the word had already moved through the city's networks before she'd even started making calls. Can Voss had been thorough. She had to give him that. He'd been planning this for months, maybe longer, and he'd used her access, her reputation, her 3 years of loyal work as the instrument. And when he was finished, he'd filed the paperwork with her signature on it and announced their engagement's dissolution in the same press release that named her as a person of interest. She sat in the empty apartment on a Friday night with a box of her things from the office and understood, for the first time in her life, what it felt like to be completely alone in a city she'd helped build for other people. The knock at the door was quiet. Not a visitor's knock. The knock of someone who already knew she was home. She opened it. The man on the other side was tall, unhurried, silver-streaked dark hair, a coat that looked like it had never been rushed into. He held a business card between 2 fingers, no name on it, just an address. "You don't know me," he said, "but I've been watching Can Voss for 2 years. He's made the same mistake 3 times. You're the 4th?" He paused. "I don't like patterns." She didn't take the card. "Who are you?" "Someone who keeps records." He set the card on the doorframe and left. His name, she learned the next day when she looked up the address, was Cale Dorn. What Cale Dorn was took her another hour to understand, and when she did, she sat with the card for a long time. She went to the address anyway. There wasn't much left to lose. The building was unremarkable from the outside. A mid-city tower with a financial consultancy on its public floors. The upper floors were something else. Quiet, wood and dark glass. A view of Verith City that made the city look like something he owned, which, she was beginning to understand, was closer to accurate than metaphor. Cale was already seated when she arrived. He poured tea without asking if she wanted it. "The transfer logs were forged using your authentication token," he said. "Kane's technical lead executed it. I have the server access records, the timestamp discrepancy, and the name of the offshore account the money actually moved to. It isn't yours." She stared at him. "You've had this for 6 weeks." He set the teapot down. "I was waiting to see if you'd find your own way out. You didn't. The city closed too fast." He said it without apology. "Observation, not cruelty. Why does it matter to you?" Cale looked at her the way men look at things they've already made decisions about. Calm. Certain. No performance in it. "Because Can Voss owes me something considerably larger than an apology, and the method I choose for collecting it involves making sure the instrument he used to do it is no longer in a position to be hurt by the fallout." He folded his hands. "I protect what I choose to protect. I chose." The word landed quietly, not a declaration, just a fact about how he moved through the world. "And what do you want in return?" she asked. "Nothing you aren't willing to give." He slid a folder across the table. "Read that. Tell me what you want done, and in what order. I'll handle the rest." Shadow ledger. Active. Debs logged against Voss Group subsidiaries. 14. Debs logged against House Solen. 6. Estimated cascade time upon simultaneous collection. 72 hours. Probability of public collapse. 94%. She read the folder. It took 40 minutes. By the end of it, her hands were very still. "All of it," she said. "Everything in there." Cale nodded. He picked up his phone and made one call. The first debt was called in on a Monday. The Voss Group's primary lender, a private equity firm that had been operating under a decade-old regulatory exemption it had no legal right to, received a visit from the city's financial oversight office. The exemption was revoked. Voss Group's credit line restructured. The firm's CFO, who owed Cale a favor he'd been hoping to never repay, filed the report personally. The second debt came Tuesday. A deputy commissioner in the city's commercial licensing division, who had 8 years ago accepted a sum of money to look away from a zoning irregularity that KL had quietly documented, received a package. The package contained nothing illegal, just a photograph and a note. The Voss Group's operating licenses in the Harbor District. Please review. The review took 48 hours. 3 licenses were suspended pending investigation. The third debt was personal. The technical lead who'd forged the transfer logs, a man named Severick, who had believed Kale would never surface his role because surfacing it would expose Kale's own surveillance methods, came to work on Wednesday to find that his employment contract had been terminated and a civil complaint had been filed by the Voss Group's own legal team, who had been anonymously provided with evidence of Severick's side arrangement. Khan had cut him loose inside 6 hours to limit exposure. Severick, furious and cornered, provided the authentication logs to the Financial Crime Registry by end of day. The case against Mira Solen was closed on Thursday. No apology from the registry, no statement from the Voss Group, just a status update. Charges withdrawn, pending record expungement. She read it on her phone in Kale's building, where she'd been working for 4 days in a temporary office he'd given her, without comment. She looked up. He was standing in the doorway. 4 down, he said. 10 left. She realized she'd stopped being afraid of what came next somewhere around Tuesday. And she hadn't noticed the exact moment it happened. The remaining 10 debts fell across the following 2 weeks with the precise, unhurried rhythm of a man who had spent years learning exactly how much weight each stone in an arch was bearing before he decided which one to pull. The Voss Group's harbor licenses never came back. Without them, 3 of Kane's largest supply contracts, the ones the group's quarterly projections were built on, had to be renegotiated at significantly worse terms. Kane went to his board and told them it was a temporary regulatory issue. The board, who had received their own quiet deliveries from various directions, were already reading the exits. The property deal Kane had been building for 18 months. His great public victory, the downtown redevelopment that was supposed to cement his name alongside his father's, collapsed when the city council member who'd been his primary ally quietly withdrew her support. She did not explain why. She did not need to. By the 3rd week, Khan Voss was in the newspapers for the wrong reasons. Not accused of anything. Not yet. Kale had been careful about the sequencing, but the pattern of failures was visible to anyone who was paying attention, which the city's financial press very much was. A profile ran the word overextended. Appeared 4 times. House Solen, who had been watching with mounting alarm, convened a family meeting. They called Mira on a Thursday evening. Her father, her mother, her uncle who ran the foundation. They were very sorry. They had acted rashly. Family was family. They hoped she understood the pressure they'd been under, and surely now that the misunderstanding had been cleared up. No, she said. A pause. Mira. I understand the pressure you were under, she said. I understand exactly how it felt to have to make that call. I've had a lot of time to think about it. She looked out the window of the office she'd started thinking of as hers. The city was lit up below in the way it always was, indifferent and complete. I also understand that you made it in 4 hours, before a single fact was checked, because it was easier. She paused. I'm busy. Good night. She ended the call and sat with the quiet for a moment. Then she went back to work. The Voss Group board voted to restructure management on a Friday afternoon. Khan Voss was removed from his executive position by a vote of 7-2. The press release used the phrase, strategic leadership transition. Khan gave a statement about pursuing new opportunities. He looked, in his photograph, like a man who was beginning to understand the dimensions of what had happened to him, but couldn't yet see the shape of it. He called Mira that evening. She didn't answer. She was at dinner. The restaurant was the kind of place that required 3 weeks' notices for a reservation. Kale had not required 3 weeks' notice. They sat by the window which looked out over the harbor, and for the first time in weeks Mira ate a meal without thinking about what she had to do next. It's done, she said. The board removal was the last structural piece, Kale said. The civil case for the forged logs will continue without my involvement. Severick has already cooperated. Khan will likely settle. He picked up his wine glass. He won't recover, not in this city. She thought about the woman who'd sat in an empty apartment with a box from her office and understood she was alone. She didn't feel sorry for what had been done. She felt something cleaner than that. Something level. You could have done this without me, she said. You had everything before I came to you. Yes, So the folder, asking me what I wanted in what order, was for you, he said, not for me. He looked at her the way he had in her doorway. No performance in it. The outcome was always going to be the same. How it felt to arrive at it, that was yours to decide. She sat with that. Outside the window, Vareth City went on the way cities do, bright and enormous and full of people who had no idea what had just shifted inside it. The Voss group was a smaller thing than it had been 3 weeks ago. House Solène was quieter. The woman they had all written off was sitting in the best seat in the most exclusive restaurant in the city, and no one who had abandoned her had put her there. She had arrived at it herself. She'd just had better protection along the way. She raised her glass. Kale raised his. The city glittered below them, and the people who had made their first mistake had already begun living inside. Its consequences, whether they understood it yet or not.